So I'm here to talk to you today about, well, first of all, it wouldn't be a conference today without AI in the subject, right? We gotta have the obligatory AI discussion, right? So I'm up here to talk to you about my take on what's happening today in the world of cybersecurity and how that relates to CMMC in the context of what is the major changes around what AI is bringing to the table. Now, probably the most of you don't know who I am, so I'm going to give a little bit of background on my bio to put everything in context. Just like Flo said, yes, I was a Ranger qualified officer. I started out my career in the military as doing infantry officer things. I did that for 12 years. Broke my ankle on a jump and realized I needed a job skill for post-Army days. Had kids, family, and there was this thing called audit system automation. It was the precursor to computers that we know today. I got involved with that. My first assignment was at a place called LIWA, Land Information Warfare Activity, where I was the automation officer, and I had a ridiculous budget. And I had running ATM to the desktop in 1999, and I thought the whole Army operated like that, and it was really fun and cool, and getting things from comms back from Kosovo and just doing all kinds of really interesting stuff. And at the time, LIWA also ran the Army's Red Team, and I got to know those guys pretty well. I got to understand their capabilities, and I got into the world of what we now call cybersecurity. Then it was computer defense, actually information assurance, and then it became computer network defense. And so that was my first assignment. Then I went off and went to Fort Hood, ended up being the Corps Automation Officer, deployed all comms into Iraq, ran all the data networks in Iraq for 150,000 soldiers for a year. And nobody had ever done that before, so we were learning as we were going. And then came back and commanded the Army Computer Emergency Response Team and 2nd Information Operations Battalion. And I was the first actually designated unit in the Army that actually was doing computer network defense and coordinating offense and defense and exploitation all at the same time. And then I retired. And I went to work for General Dynamics, where I ran the U.S. CERT program for them for about 2-3 years. And so I got a different perspective. Went from the military perspective of what defense looks like and what computer network operations look like to what the commercial world, or excuse me, what the federal world looks like. And I realized that was really scary. And then I left there and I went for a cyber intelligence company, and I got involved with commercial information and how we're doing cybersecurity. I think that's about the time we started using that term. And I'm trying not to date myself, but I feel my age. And so I've been around this gig for a while. And now went from that to Intelligent Waves, and then we spun out Hypori. And just like Flo said and mentioned, ever since I've been out, retired from the military, my goal has always been to ensure, to the best of my ability, that I could provide capability back to my brothers in arms. And when my boss had the opportunity, Jared Shepard had the opportunity to buy the intellectual property for Hypori and reform it and spin it out, I joined, and we started this journey about 8 years ago. And weirdly enough, we started out in the classified world and then went to IL5 and FedRAMP, and now we're more in the commercial space a little bit, which is about backwards from where everybody else goes. And that was just because of our background and the people we knew and trying to support the mission. So I just say all that in context of where I'm coming from my perspective of what's happening in the world of cybersecurity and how that relates in the CMMC. And obviously, because we do mobile security, that's my kind of focus these days, I'm going to take it from that kind of perspective. So I'm just saying all that to give you context to where I'm coming from. So a couple of things. Palo Alto, Unit 42, actually predecessor of mine from my days at the Army CERT. Rick Howard formed Unit 42, and if you don't know where the term 42 comes from, it's of course the answer to life, the universe, and everything. True story. That's why it's Unit 42. So obviously things are changing. The speed at which the threat is operating because of what AI is providing them is exponentially greater than 5 years ago or even a few years ago. And then obviously Verizon does a great job at, because this is their space, of identifying in their Mobile Security Index report every year. But if you look there, what they're focusing on is what the effects, what are the outcomes of lack of cybersecurity or good practices, or even that, hey, say you have good practices and you're doing all the right thing, kind of what Flo was mentioning earlier, do all the right things and you still can get owned. And then obviously the cost. If you've never had a cyber breach, I lived that pain very much when I was in the military of having to deal with cyber breaches. And that was part of my job, was cleaning up the mess. It's the most impactful thing you probably go through in your life. And in the commercial world, it could be ending your company, so your livelihood. And then I think one of the things now we've been, we all like to use the term zero trust. Zero trust means we don't trust anything. But in practice, a lot of the tools and capabilities we use have to trust things in order to operate. At some point in time, you have to trust the operating system, or you have to trust the device, or you have to trust some component of that. And we'll get to the capstone of the conversation is the Stryker event. And if you're not tracking that, I'll explain that. But I'm going to take that whole idea of zero trust and what it really means from my perspective and help with this inflection point. But you know, kind of what Flo said about Red Lattice, that it's bad out there. And if you've been on the side of the offensive capabilities and everything else, you understand. Probably like you, I don't sleep much. Out of the CrowdStrike threat report, I was able to pull this out, and it talks specifically about APTs, advanced persistent threats, and those families, and what they're doing with AI today. And it's a lot. Whether it's helping kind of shorten the time to recon, the time to find what they want to go after, find anomalies, whatever it is, they're using it to their advantage. And we need to be using it to our advantage if we can, but they are definitely using it. AI is really taking advantage of legacy systems and legacy defenses. So the failure of the device-centric zero trust is all about that. So if you think about it, if I have to rely on defensive systems, intrusion, the old intrusion detection systems, nobody does anymore, right? We do XDR. We have all these really cool acronyms and sayings and stuff, right? It's the same thing repackaged, right? I got in an argument once with somebody about behavior analysis as being the way that we were detecting bad things on a network, and I'm like, yeah, it's behavior analysis is based on a signature. No, we're not signature based. Well, yeah, you are. It's just your signature now is a behavior instead of a file name or a MD5 hash or whatever. But it's still a signature. It's just a different way of coining the term. So we got in a big discussion, and it was really fun, and I got him really frustrated, which I do to most people. But it was kind of eye-opening for me to say, a lot of times we repackage stuff, we say it's different, but it really is the same. We're reactive, we're waiting for something to cross the line, we're waiting for something to hit us. There are a lot of capabilities out today that look hopefully deeper into cyberspace. Shodan is a great tool if you don't know what it is. It's a great way of doing some intel, commercial intel. Multigo, there's some other tools and capabilities out there, but the ability to see out and what's hitting you or what's about to hit you is really forcing us to get away from this idea that we're gonna use the legacy systems to keep pace with the threat, because the threat's moving way faster. And oh, by the way, as you all know, they only have to get lucky once. You have to be lucky every time. So the other thing is, in a lot of cases, if I were able to compromise the firmware or OS on the system, specifically the firmware, specifically the chipsets, if I can get to the chipset level, if I can do near-field communication and attack your baseband attack, radio attack, and get underneath the operating system, get underneath your security, turn your TPM chip off, what can I do to your phone? What can I do to the entire structure and everything around your security that you have? So if you have an MDM and you've got that thing locked down and you can't do anything on that phone except for the specific things that you want it to do, what if the TPM gets turned off? What if those things that you rely on, that mobile threat, whether it's a laptop or a phone or a tablet, what if those things get turned off? What do you do about it? How do you know that you can trust that device at that point? And oh, by the way, everybody in here has a mobile device. They either have their phone or they have a laptop or something that they are roaming around, and they're worried about, or they're using commercial open networks, and you have to worry about what's getting picked up in that transmission, what's being injected, what's being sent back to you that you don't know, or don't know if you can trust. So what I'm saying is, in some cases, device management gives you illusion of control, and especially if you're talking MAM, which is mobile application management, which means you're not controlling the device, you're actually controlling the apps. What's underneath that? What's turning it on and off? And once again, we'll get to the Stryker story at the end. And so if you're talking about specifically the in the MAM case or MDM, it doesn't matter, or maybe you're not using any and you're just relying on web access. Well, you have to worry about, if I'm on a personal device, and my company, we're kind of in the BYOD space. It's a good use case for us, but there's a lot of other applications for that. A lot of folks allow their employees to use their personal devices to get access to things, and now you have this conflict of user privacy, what's private on their phone, what they want to keep private, and what you want to keep secure. For instance, your access into your corporate enterprise, or access to CUI when we're talking about the government's data. And what about the apps that you don't control? What are they introducing? Does everybody understand the big deal about TikTok? You know the TikTok, no TikTok on the device laws. Everybody tracking that? If you're not, there's an executive order out that says if you're in the federal government or dealing with CUI, you can't have TikTok on your device. Doesn't matter whether or not you've got security on the device. Doesn't matter if you're containerizing your apps. Doesn't matter. You can't have TikTok on your device. And the reason why, it's very simple. If you go out to TikTok's acceptable use policy and their privacy statement on their website, it flat out says, we go into your mobile phone or whatever system you're using TikTok on. We interrogate every social media app that you have. We pull data on it. We pull your contacts. We do whatever we want in there. And you, by accepting the fact that you loaded the app on your phone, you're saying okay, because you never read it. You never read the fact that they're telling you, we're going to just do whatever we want on your device and good luck. And we're going to pull whatever data we want and we're going to pull it in because we want to make your user experience awesome. And we want to make sure that all your contacts are shared and we're just going to, it's a kumbaya world. Well, it's owned by a Chinese company, and everybody knows that every company in China is owned by the Chinese government. There's no separation between the companies and the government. So therefore, everything that you got is going into wherever they want to do and however they want to exploit it. That's the problem with TikTok. And that's a kind of a microcosm of this whole discussion about, I have my own personal device and I want to use it for work. Maybe I want to send somebody a signal message that says we're going to attack Yemen. And maybe that's not a good idea if you're Secretary of Defense. And so those are issues, right? Those are things that in the back of their mind, they're trying to get something done operationally. We're trying to do things quickly. People do it all the time. We use these apps, and sometimes we put things on there we probably shouldn't in the interest of speed. And then one of the other thing is, I mentioned this before, near field communications and Bluetooth. So if I'm walking around and I have Bluetooth enabled, and I'm not really using it, but I have it on my car, or I have my iPods, my earbuds or whatever hooked into it, and I'm not using it, but it's on, well, then people can interrogate it. They can get into your phone. Or maybe I'm just passing by and using near field communication. I could just download malware right to your phone, and I own it. All those things are real. And then what happens is I can start trying to get credentials off your device. And there's a whole bunch of things that we can do, and people aren't even thinking about the fact that I got to worry about these things I can't even see, touch, or feel. And so that's how these are ways that the bad guys are getting in. And in some cases, there are the security tools that you have, maybe you rely on or you trust, maybe they're not that trustworthy, and you have to worry about whether or not you're going to be able to protect corporate data, personal data, or in the context of the discussion, CUI. I hate saying CUI. Sorry. So if you're a CUI fan, I hate that. I'm a CUI. I won't say CUI because I just don't like it. Anyway, principles that I believe that kind of guide an idea of how we do modern zero trust today. I think we should all start with the adage, especially when you're talking about mobile devices. It's compromised. It's done. It's owned. Just deal with it. Just get over it. It's going to be owned. You can't protect yourself from everything. So just make that assumption. It's owned or it's going to be owned. So, okay, Matt, then what do I do? It seems like that's a defeatist thing. Well, you can eliminate local data. You can use other technologies doesn't matter if your phone's compromised, doesn't matter. We're not going to put the data locally on the device. There's ways of doing that. There's conditional access policies. There's ways to prevent downloads. There's all kinds of ways to do that. And obviously my company does that too. But the point is, eliminating local data from that device means I don't have to worry about a leakage off the device. I don't have to worry about that extended attack surface. And then in a lot of cases, most of the mobile security technologies allow you to separate personnel from enterprise data, but you really want to make that very crystal clear, and end users don't really want to think Big Brother is watching me when I'm using my phone. They do not want to have any idea that the company is looking at my TikTok videos or my Instagram messages or whatever, right? Because that's me, that's my personal thing. And then last but not least, think about it. If you're running any kind of mobile device management or any kind of EMM, enterprise mobility management, you are going to be extending the attack surface out to every single one of those devices that you don't control. You don't know where it is. You're not necessarily tracking that well, possibly. And so therefore, you can't guarantee the security of that device. You can't guarantee the data that's on the device. So my philosophy that I use is that I don't really care about the devices anymore. I care about the data. And so moving to in your mindset of a data-centric security model where, and you'll see it, the government's really moved to this, especially within the unclassified, it's at least in the military, tagging data, tagging messages, making sure that you're controlling and you understand, hey, when I send this out, are the right recipients receiving it? Have I tagged it? Is the right controls in place? Because that message is really what we care about. Whether or not a device is compromised, that's only the host, the thing that's supposedly protecting or sharing the data. The data itself is what's important. The data is the thing that could get somebody killed. The data is the thing that, from an industrial espionage point of view, is what the threat is going after. So the data is what you should care about, not so much the device. Devices, you could throw them away and get a new one tomorrow and still get access to the data, but the data is the key. And so I recommend device agnostic, data-driven, data-centric kind of philosophy of security. And like I said, no data on the device, no direct access. I don't like the idea of somebody coming from a device I don't control into my enterprise in any way, shape, or form. That is just badness to me. And so if I can't control it, if I can't maintain it, if I can't have visibility on it 24, like all the time, then, hey, I've got real issues on allowing that as the chief security officer of my company. I don't allow it. That doesn't happen in the world that I control. And then if it does get compromised, I don't care. I flat out don't care. That's if a device that we're not managing or whatever, I don't want to care about that, because that's, I've got enough stuff that's keeping me awake at night. I'd like a little help. So, and then isolation. And so, like I said, the bottom line, the tagline is, I want a strategy that's going to not rely on the security of the device, but really worried about the data. And so that's the paradigm shift. And so there is a technology out there. Surprise, surprise, it's what Hypori does. But it's all about using virtual mobile infrastructure. So how many people know what VDI is? Virtual desktop. You've heard of Citrix. It's the same philosophy. It's the idea that you have a dumb terminal, it's your phone, or tablet or whatever, but you access the data, the systems, and everything else, but there's never anything on your device. There's never any true access into your environment. It's all proxied. Every bit of the communication is proxied. There's no data transfer. The only thing that happens in this model is that there's some telemetry data coming off the phone that goes up. You get pixels back, and there's no way to move data across those streams. In fact, there are two different routes. The access to what we call the virtual workspace is separate and distinct from the access from the virtual workspace into the cloud apps and capabilities. And so what do you get out of that? Your device ends up being a window. It's not a data. It doesn't access any data. It doesn't move data. It doesn't do any of that. There's no data on the device. And the control of the data stays within the enclave, where you have, a fist grip on what's going on within that capability in that environment. So why do you care from a CMMC point of view, and why, you just sat through my whole thing about what my philosophy, and really why, really big one, because I'm just like probably some of you in here, I'm going through, so we're FedRAMP authorized, but we also are going through the CMMC journey as a government contractor right now. Just finished my mock audit. Good to go. No issues. My one finding was I did not sign my SSP. So I got to sign the SSP. But, gone through the whole pain of what that looks like in the probing that happens when you're going through that. I've been through IL5. I've been through FedRAMP High. I've been through other certifications, SOC 2. We have all those. And CMMC is right up there. It's just as invasive and feeling dirty after it's over and stuff like that. But the most important thing for me was, because my mobile strategy is all around my product. So I'm a customer. Not only am I the CISO for the product, but I'm the CISO for the company, is that all my mobile devices are out of scope. So when we came to that, a couple of those things, just like VDI, went to the auditors and said, they said, okay, how are you doing mobile security? It's out of scope. We're using this. Explained it to them, and they're like, yep, out of scope. So guess what? That entire conversation about anything relating to mobile devices was gone. I didn't have to have it. We just moved on because the devices are out of scope. And that's from the scoping guide, the CMMC scoping guide. Clearly says VDI, out of scope. And our auditors agreed VDI, VMI, same thing. We're FedRAMP High. So think about that. Using a technology that takes something off your plate as a CISO, or if you're a small company, big company, doesn't matter. Taking something off your plate is a huge deal, and I know you guys all get that. So then I only have to worry about the apps that are on the virtual workspace and the connection up into the cloud. So in my case, FedRAMP High to FedRAMP High, it's pretty much just a hairpin. and it's all TLS protected. So it's a way different argument than worrying about VPNs and all the things that have to come from mobile devices and all the protection you have to wrap around that cookie. So big deal for me. It should be a big deal for you guys. And then I'm going to wrap it up kind of talking about the Stryker attack. How many people know what I'm talking about when I say the Stryker attack? Okay, good. About half. So about a week and a half ago, roughly, folks that were employees of Stryker and also customers of Stryker started getting messages saying, "Hey, we were attacked." Well, the big sign that they were attacked was the fact that if you were a BYOD user within the Stryker Corporation, your phone was wiped. You went to turn on your phone and your phone wasn't doing anything. There was no data on it, no connection. It was gone. It was wiped. Why? Because the threat, an Iranian hacker group, had actually managed to get into their deployment of Intune and used it to send out a wipe command. And I believe at last count, somewhere around 200,000 endpoints were affected, both BYOD but also corporate. So here's where a legitimate thing, because hackers, number one goal of a hacker is to get into a legitimate system and look legitimate. So therefore, no security is going to pick up a legitimate thing doing legitimate things for legitimate reasons, or at least in the mindset of security tools. In this case, they not only did they wipe systems, but they extracted about 50 terabytes worth of data from their systems before they wiped them. That's a huge deal. I don't know about you guys, but I don't know how many heart attacks I would have that day when that happened as a CISO. That is my nightmare scenario, and it's probably a nightmare scenario for most of you guys sitting out there. It's huge, right? It's in the, obviously it's newsworthy. It's going to affect your brand. It's going to affect loyalty. It's going to affect sales. It's going to do everything that, and this is not a small company we're talking about, and their healthcare. So it affected medical devices. This is worst case scenario, guys. This doesn't get worse than this. And in this case, in this specific case, especially for those BYOD users, they were actually affected the entire phone. So everything outside of the phone, they sent a wipe command and it just took out everything. And that's a bad day for that person too. Now, the other thing that Stryker as a company is worrying about, the personal, there's going to be personal liability. There's going to be lawsuits that are coming. I've already seen things that people are coming back and saying, "Hey, this took me offline. I wasn't able to do whatever." And so you can guarantee some lawyer is going to take a class action suit and go after them too. For the majority of you guys, I know that, for instance, I use my phone carrier is Verizon, and I know when you switch phones, you pretty much press a button and all your data is kind of pushed back because they do manage to hold it in the cloud. But imagine if the malware that they used, or even the wipe commands, were able to get into some of the backups and some of those other things. That would be a really bad day. I'm hoping for their sake they had good backups, and this is kind of the poster child for making sure you have good backups if you're providing cloud services or even any part of your organization. And just some of the differences between what happened there and what would have been different. Well, specifically in our case, Hypori does not allow any app to run unless it's expressly allowed inside of our environment. We use SE Android policies, so you cannot do anything inside the environment. We've had 3-letter agencies with capabilities inside of our environment try and exploit it, and they haven't been able to do it because we control that environment. So even if and we provide a read-only copy. So when you see that operating system, when you see your virtual workspace, it's read-only. You can't do anything to it. And therefore, if they issued a wipe command, even if they had an MDM running inside our environment, and it did run and it was able to execute, the restore would happen almost instantaneously once the big Intune in the sky or whatever they were using is done. And of course, everything's backed up. It's in FedRAMP High. It's encrypted. using FIPS 140-3. Communication is all encrypted using MTLS. We use MTLS inside of our network architecture. So it's just a tough nut to crack. I'm not saying I would never come out and say publicly that it's uncrackable, because that's stupid and I don't want to put a target on our back, but we've done really well to mitigate a lot of risk, and it works pretty well. All right, and I think that's, so just the two things I want you to come out of this with is, we started with the AI discussion because, it's obligatory, I had to say AI, but the more important thing is AI is moving us, and I'll make this determination real quick. When I first got involved with cybersecurity 20 years ago, you were talking, and even when I worked at the U.S. CERT, if you've ever been over there near the U.S. CERT, there was a deli called Buoy Mongers. And Buoy Mongers was a delicatessen, and every morning my analysts would get up, show up into work and start running their queries. And then they go over to Buoy Mongers, and they get a coffee and a bagel or whatever, because the queries took so long to run to do all the analysis of the data, and then they come back, sit down, and hopefully it would stop running and they were able to do, keep going. Well, the threat obviously has evolved. Our capabilities evolved, but so has AI. So in that world where you were going from 3 to 6 months for somebody to develop a tool to the 2 to 3 months of proof of concept where it was being used experimentally, and then it would go silent for about a month, and then all of a sudden you'd see it pop up as an exploit someplace. So you're talking about, it took a while to get exploits going. Well, in today's vernacular, it's in minutes and seconds. They're developing it using AI. They're using AI to develop code. They're using AI to look at your infrastructure, pull out whatever data they can find, run exploits against it, and then deploy it in seconds and minutes. So that's why I'm saying the whole idea of protecting infrastructure, much harder today than it ever was in the past. Whatever you can do to remove your attack surface, remove the data from the device, control what you can control, let go what you can't control, is kind of the philosophy that I'm trying to, and the benefit to CMMC out of scope. You want it out of scope. If you can get something out of scope, you can get it off your plate, make it non-applicable. Those are the best words in the world when you're going through an audit. Non-applicable, love those. So anything you can do to make your life better, that's my philosophy. And then, my little quote there of, don't trust the device. Really hard to do that anyway. Go to zero trust, which means really do whatever you can to get rid of the device. So I'll leave it there. If anybody has any questions, feel free to. We got some time. We got a couple minutes. No, okay. I ran out. So I will be roaming around here. You can grab me. We're also going to do Ask the Expert this afternoon, so you can save or later on this morning. Sorry, not this afternoon. Later on this morning. So while we're up here, you can ask any one of the folks that are going to be up on stage, and we'll happy to share our CMMC experiences with you guys. That's what we're here for, to help us all get better at this. So thank you. Yeah, and just thanks, Natalia. So we're going to go on a 10-minute break. So from here, you'll either be in this room, depending on which you want seminar you want to listen to, or the room across the hall. So thank you. 10-minute break, and everybody have a great day.